Hey, small business people and lovers of good stories in general. Welcome to episode 36 of Small Business War Stories. And today I was driving in the Soul of America tour and I stopped by Muscle Shoals, Alabama. It was actually in Sheffield, Alabama, but I stopped by the Muscle Shoals Music Foundation and I spoke to Andrew Kelly. And Muscle Shoals is famous because it was an iconic place for people to record music in the 1960s and 1970s. It started with Fame Studios, people like Aretha Franklin recording there, and then it expanded to the studio where I actually did this interview, where the Rolling Stones recorded 3 of the songs in Sticky Fingers, so Wild Horses, Brown Sugar, and You Gotta Move. So it was amazing to be here in this room with so much history, where Lynrd Skynrd cut records, and Dan Auerbach, and the Rolling Stones. A lot of really amazing stories, and it's really interesting to hear how a group of interested people turned this, what was really an abandoned studio, into a tourist attraction where they do tours and they also do recording sessions now. And Andrew was kind enough to sit down with me in the actual studio. I sat in a couch that was there when the Stones recorded there, which was great, and share with me the story of how they've accomplished this. This episode is a part of the Soul of America tour, and as a part of the Soul of America tour, it's sponsored by Tecovas Boots. That's Tecovas. Tecovas Boots is a great company that sells directly to consumers. So you get top-notch boots for a fraction of the price that you would pay at a retailer. They're basically selling directly to you. I wore my boots every single day of the Soul of America tour, and they were great. I have the brown, it's bourbon-colored ropers, and they're fantastic, but check them out. Tecovas, Tecovas. And the tour is also brought to you by Impact Crates. Impact Crates are safe and secure dog crates that you can fold and transport very easily, and they're a great way for your pup to travel with you. My pup, Muddy Waggers, travels with me in the crate whenever we go on a tour for the podcast. And if you go to Impact Crates and use code MUDDY20, MUDDY20, you will get 20% off your Impact Crate. So go check it out. And the Soul of America tour is also sponsored by Badger Mapping. Badger Mapping is a company that helps you map your route if you're a salesperson, and if you manage salespeople, that helps you optimize a route in order to have the best possible route for your job. I used it personally to find the best possible route for my podcast. So I used it, I put in all the locations, and it helped me during a 4,000-mile trip figure out what the best way was to get from one place to the next. So check them out, Badger Mapping. If you tell them you found them on Small Business War Stories, it will give you 2 free months. And like every episode of the Small Business War Stories podcast, this one is brought to you by Proven. And Proven.com. Proven is the company that I started with my business partner, Sean. And it is a small business hiring tool that helps you, Mr. Small Business or Mrs. Small Business or Miss Small Business owner or operator, hire for your business. And it's very simple and easy to use. You post your job. We have partnerships with over 100 job boards. You can post it directly there. And we have thousands of customers nationwide. And you should join them. Check them out. And it's Proven.com. There's a free trial. I'm biased. I love the tool because we built it, but we use it ourselves to hire people. And I'd love to hear what you think of it. Without further ado, I want to get into the episode, which is number 36 of the Small Business War Stories podcast with Andrew Kelly of the Muscle Shoals Music Foundation in Sheffield, Alabama. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. And we are live here in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. I cannot believe I'm actually saying that. That is so freaking cool. And I'm here with Andrew Kelly, who is one of the people that runs the studio here in Muscle Shoals, which is also currently a museum. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's awesome to be here. And yeah, I have so many questions that I want to ask you. I've been trying to come here for about 2 years, but you guys were renovating and figuring out what this beautiful display was going to look like. Muscle Shoals is obviously has an iconic history in music. So tell me a little bit more about how did you get involved with this? How did this get started?
Well, I got involved actually through the tourism office. I did a lot of interning with them while I was in college at the University of North Alabama.
Okay.
And that just kind of created an organic kind of way to move things along. And a woman by the name of Georgia Turner, she actually got the position opened up for me and contacted the director at the time. And here I am.
That is awesome. And we are, I should say, we are actually sitting in the exact music studio where the Muscle Shoals sound was crafted and it used to be called Fame Studios.
Actually, no, there's a lot of confusion
Okay,
right there.
okay.
Fame is its own entity. Fame
Okay.
started in 1959, actually, over in Florence, Alabama.
Okay.
That's what Fame actually stands for. It's Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises.
Got it, okay.
And so they moved locations to Muscle Shoals in 1961, and from there, the Muscle Shoals rhythm section was created.
Yep.
Now, they brought the Muscle Shoals sound over here, and so we're actually not in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. We're in Sheffield, Alabama.
Okay, got
and
it.
so that there's a lot of confusion. Nobody really knows where the hell they are when they come here. So
Very cool.
But they brought the Muscle Shoals sound from Fame over to this studio.
Makes sense. And but this is the actual studio where Keith Richards and Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones
Yes,
recorded.
December 1969, they recorded 3 songs off of Sticky Fingers, which were "You Gotta Move," "Wild Horses," and "Brown Sugar."
Yeah, that's awesome. You Gotta Move. That's a Lightning Hopkins song, right?
Yeah, and it's so it's real bluesy. That's where their influence
Slide.
came from. You know, a lot of before they really found their bluesy rock sound, a lot of them kind of said that they were emulating the Beatles, and then they finally broke away from that and blew everybody out of the water with the sound that they created.
That's amazing. And you were telling me during the tour here that Keith Richards finished out the lyrics to Wild Horses while sitting in the toilet here.
Yeah, over just a few feet from me in the bathroom. He went in there and got inspired in some way or another, you know.
Yeah.
So he was in there for quite some time, and then they came out with the last bit of Wild Horses.
Cool. So who are some of the other famous recording artists that came through here?
Oh, man, the list is just so extensive, but, I mean, just off the top of my head, Paul Simon, Bob Seger, Lynrd Skynrd, Linda Ronstadt, the Staple Singers, Wilson Pickett, just Levon Helm, Leon Russell.
Cool. Did Aretha Franklin record here, or was she in the other one?
Actually, she did 1 to 2 songs over at Fame Studios.
Got it.
And then she's actually the reason that this whole studio even got started, because Rick Hall and her husband at the time, Ted, got into an altercation on the 4th story of a hotel, a local hotel, just across the water, almost throwing each other off. Jerry Wexler had enough, and of course he was with Atlantic Records, so he pulled out of working at Fame.
Got it.
Brought the Muscle Shoals sound rhythm section up to New York to finish Aretha's album.
Right.
And then when they came back, Rick had already struck a deal with Capitol Records and wanted them to sign a deal exclusively recording their music here at Fame Studios, and they didn't want to be exclusive to Fame.
Yeah.
So that's why they broke away and started Muscle Shoals Sound.
Wow, that is amazing. Cool. So that is, I mean, this whole building is dripping with history. Tell me a little bit more. So there were some intervening years when this was not music focused, right?
Yeah. Well, they were in this facility from 1969 to 1978, and then they moved to a much larger facility. And so after 1978, this actually became an audio store. They sold audio equipment out of it, also repaired audio equipment. We have an engineer that works here and does a lot of work here who actually got started at Big Bear Audio, which is what it was then. And so his name is Greg. He comes in and he does a lot of stuff here, and he's been situated since then. So they would bring gear back here to have it repaired and to work on it and that kind of thing. But after this facility, they moved to a 31,000 square foot facility right on the Tennessee River.
Wow. And
so that actually had 2 studios in it, a bar, a lounge, just all kinds of shit. You know, I mean, it was loaded up. I mean, and that building's got a lot of history in itself. But the vibe definitely is more saturated here. A lot more stuff happened in here. And, you're in here with me. You can see how small it is in here.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was a much more intimate setting, I mean, it was them getting together,
Yeah.
jamming and making this music with these incredible artists.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And yeah, actually, when you talk, you hear Keith Richards talk about what it was like to record here, and you kind of talked about it in the tour too. There's not a hell of a lot else to do here, and then also like having the river and the woods, and it's just got this kind of, it's kind of like a little bit slower, swampy, but like soulful feel to it. And I think that, probably has a lot to do with it.
It comes out in the music for sure. And it's not even just the water. A lot of what was happening back then, I mean, because you had Motown up in the north in Detroit, but they're a lot more, upbeat, peppy, that kind of thing. The music that came out of here really was because of oppression. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it was the Deep South in the 60s.
Yeah.
None of that reflected in the studio by any means. There was no color in the studio. But, when Wilson Pickett came here to record over at Fame before he actually started recording over here, he was driven past all the cotton fields. Fame was surrounded by cotton fields back then. And they were still picking cotton.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, people were poor. They didn't have much to do. So you'd see them sitting on the porch. If they weren't in the river swimming, they were either sitting on their porch picking and playing music and singing to each other, or going to church, and that's really where that sound came from. A lot of gospel, a lot of soul, from the oppression that was, started. Percy Sledge got started in a little town just about 15 miles over here, and he would sing in the cotton fields, and then he became an orderly and sang to his patients. And so, it's just kind of just moved things along, vibed real well together.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So walk me through, so it became a music equipment store, stopped being a music studio for a while. Now, today, it's a fully functioning music studio. It's amazing. And you guys opened it as a historic, museum, like touring facility. And you mentioned it's got. I've been to Memphis to Sun, and it does have that similar vibe in the terms of both like the feel of the tour and the fact that they're both active studios. So how do you go from this being not a recording facility to now it being a full-fledged recording facility again with that historic aspect?
Well, it kind of happens naturally. Everybody wants to record here. I mean, they want the history. They want the sound that it was created here.
Yeah.
Now, Sun was started by Jerry Phillips. Sam Phillips,
Sam Phillips.
Jerry is Sam's son, and he was born over in Florence.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So that's where that's where Sun has their roots here.
Yeah.
And his son Jerry, who owns a radio station, actually still lives in the area. And so they run a radio station here.
Wow.
So you had W.C. Handy starting it off, and then, there's just so much influence that's gathered from that. Now, as far as we're concerned, Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys came in. He wanted to record here. He actually recorded here back in 2009.
Okay.
This was a shell of a building. They did not have the equipment that they had that we have now.
Yeah.
A different guy owned the building then and was kind of parading around as Shoals Sound Studios, even though it wasn't his. The building was, but Shoals Sound was never his. And he locked him into a 2-week deal. And so they couldn't pull out of it. They went back to Nashville, got a lot of equipment, and brought it here. And this is where they recorded Brothers, which became a Grammy-winning.
So in this room?
In this room, yeah.
The entire album?
And
wow.
Yeah, or in the basement, in the cinder block wall,
Wow.
But they kind of realized they could create music anywhere from that.
What did they bring, like a Tascam 388 or something like that?
I'm not sure all the equipment. I wasn't here then.
Yeah.
But they had to go get a lot of their music equipment. They had to get some of the recording stuff.
Because none of the stuff that's in here now was here.
No.
Yeah.
He had a different setup, and I'm not exactly sure what he had. What we've got now is a 24-track custom API board. It was actually made for Chet Atkins and came out of RCA Studio B in Nashville. So we record analog, but we convert it to digital. We have an Apogee converter.
Yeah.
So a very high dollar converter. It's so you don't lose that sound quality. You can have high end equipment record through a shitty converter, and you lose a lot of that sound quality.
Right.
But these Apogee systems are really good.
Now, I did see you have a 2-inch tape machine back there. Do you ever record that and then straight to wax, or no?
We haven't yet. Now, if we get a demand for that, of course, we would love to.
Yeah.
But just converting it to the computer is just so much easier.
Yeah.
And really, there's not a lot of companies that make the tape anymore. There's like 2 or 3 out there.
Yeah.
And they're pricey.
They are pricey. Yeah.
So,
I record to 1/4-inch tape, and that stuff ain't cheap.
No, it's not. It's
and
not cheap,
it runs fast, because for the high quality sound, you got to run it pretty fast.
Yeah.
So that you eat it up real quick.
And you can go in. We don't by any means. We don't cheat by recording digitally, but we can go in after it's been converted, and and as opposed to having an echo chamber here, we can use the Pro Tools for
to
that.
do that.
Yeah, so.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay, so now Dan Auerbach and the Black Keys come record Brothers here, basically kind of contracting out their room and turning it into their own custom studio, if I understand that correctly. Yeah. And then what happens? Then they leave. They come out with Brothers, which did okay.
Yeah, they did pretty well. They weren't exactly happy with their experience here in the Shoals then.
Okay.
Of course, to hell with that. They won a Grammy out of that experience. So, but we did definitely want Dan came here and he recorded his own stuff, and he used David Hood and Jimmy Johnson of the Swampers. He also used Gene Chrisman, of course, out of Memphis. So a lot of these older session guys, and they tracked 17 songs in 4 days.
Jesus.
So he's quite the workhorse, a beast, really.
He's also like incredibly, from what I understand, incredibly efficient and like organized with his studio experience.
Yeah, he gets the most bang out of his buck for sure. Yeah. But we wanted him to have a great experience when he came here. So he actually rented the studio for 4 days, full days, got here at 9 a.m. Sometimes didn't leave till 1:30 in the morning.
Separate from Brothers, you mean afterwards?
This is after. This is his own. Yeah, this was just a couple weeks ago, actually.
Okay.
So because of his experience here several years ago, we wanted to make sure that he enjoyed his time here, and he certainly did, and he got a lot of stuff done.
Okay. Now, so he was in this room recording a couple of weeks ago on the equipment that you have here today.
No, he used his own stuff. He took out. Well, he used the piano. Yeah. Used the Wurlitzer. Used several of our equipment, but actually brought in. All of this was stripped out and taken out and moved, and
the console, everything.
No. Okay. The console he used. The console. Okay. But I'm talking about the actual the actual instruments,
mics and everything.
Yeah, and so he brought most of his own stuff in. Now with the session that we've got going on now, it's a lot lighter. As you can see, everything's pretty much still in place. We are set up for a session, but they're coming in here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and tracking until 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So they don't interrupt the tours, which is great, because that's what our main focus is the history, the tours, the experience.
Yeah.
And then the recording stuff is kind of almost more of a side project, but it's something that promotes us very well.
Got it.
And is a good promotional tool.
So as a business, you guys are more focused on the historical preservation museum aspect than on the recording aspect.
Correct, but now we're finding that it's kind of, it goes hand in hand, really.
Yeah.
And really to promote yourself, and for us to promote the studio, it's great to have people coming back in. I can't tell you who's on the session today, but I can tell you that he was affiliated with it back in the 70s. And actually recorded here back in 1972. So for him, it's great for us to have that, because he's coming back and he's shedding more light, but still keeping up with the history.
Just later on today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's
today
wild.
And tomorrow, and he was here yesterday as well. So.
Very cool. I guess we'll find out eventually when it comes out on an album.
You can like us on Facebook, Muscle Shoals Sound Studios, and as soon as we can release, we definitely do. So.
That is awesome. So the work that Dan Auerbach was doing here, is that for his new solo album that's coming out? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because he's pre-selling that one, I think, and he's putting it on an 8-track. He's doing a bunch of really zany stuff with it.
Yeah, he's and let me tell you, the stuff that he was cutting was real funky.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to hearing what comes out of it. Now he, like I said, tracked 17 songs here.
Wow.
But his engineer said he might pick 5 or 6. So and he's been working for a long time. He's been writing since last April.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of songs. He got 17 done, but he really wanted to do 20, and he has 30 to 40 in his in his arsenal at the moment.
That's amazing.
So.
That's he actually. Well, I don't know if you've heard he put out the Arcs project.
Yes,
that was really cool. It was actually very different from the Black Keys vibe.
Very different, but it's still real funky. I really liked it. It's kind of it's got a lot of jerk to your soul, a little bit, So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's what's that line? It's forever stuck in Mississippi because Mississippi stuck in me. That's a hell of a line.
That is cool. And the songs that he created for his own solo projects got some good lyrics on that too.
Yeah,
so, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you can pre-buy that album right now. He's doing a campaign. Very cool. So walk me through more then. How does this place go from basically being I don't want to say abandoned, it was probably used for something, but it was not being used for anything music related, to who took the initiative to turn this into a museum and turn it back into a studio?
All right, you're going to have to stay with me because I got a lot of time that I got to fill right here, and I'll tell you about it.
All right.
So basically you start off with the documentary coming out. So Stephen Badger created the documentary. Now he is actually...
The one on Netflix, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
called Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Really, I think it should have been called the Rick Hall story.
Okay.
Because really, what touched on this and what happened here is almost more of a montage inside the documentary. So there's
Rick Hall was the gentleman that started
Fame.
Okay,
yeah. And so he's got a very tragic life, and it was an interesting story. Now, this all, what shed light on this, the Shoals Music Foundation, which was started up by several people that are related to the music in this area. Judy Hood being one of those. She's the chairperson of the board.
Okay.
Rodney Hall, the son of Rick Hall, who runs Fame now. Stephen Badger's on that board. We've got the mayor in this town is on that board. Well, anyway, so... what they did is they purchased the building from the gentleman I told you about earlier, and so they purchased the building with the hopes of doing tours, in the hopes of bringing it back to its former glory. And they're a nonprofit organization that brought all this together. So they didn't know how they were going to be able to, to bring this back to what it was. This building was in derelict condition, just terrible shape, and it had just fallen through the cracks, and the cracks had fallen through more cracks,
Yeah.
So they got together, formed the foundation, bought the building, and then they were approached by Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre of Beats Electronics, Beats by Dre, which eventually sold to Apple. Now, they wrote a grant to be able to restore this building back to what it was in '69, and actually then some. So we've actually gone through and soundproofed the roof, put in these super thick doors, made it more studio quality than it ever was back then.
Okay.
And then so from there, we bought the equipment and started to just fill in the space, and had a wonderful interior decorator go through. Everything in this studio is time period specific. So it's all straight out of the late 60s, early 70s.
And you said there are a few pieces that are part of the original studio,
part of the...
right?
Actually, you're sitting on one
I'm
of them right now.
sitting on this amazing kind of orange vinyl, faded orange vinyl chair.
It is something else. And it's Big Brother over there, the orange couch.
So
you
I can
actually
assume
see
Mick
him.
Jagger and Keith Richards both probably sat on this chair at some
definitely
point.
there.
Awesome.
or the couch over there on the side. So,
right.
But it's really cool. There's a lot of cigarette burns burned into them, especially on the couch, and I mean maybe other substances burned into it. You know what I mean? So.
No, I don't know what you mean.
We got a national holiday coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Those two are original pieces. They've actually never left the studio since '69. You can see them. We've got a picture of them with Mick Taylor in here in the studio.
Okay.
Now the piano, the baby grand that I've got sitting behind me, it's a Yamaha. Now it was purchased in early 1970, so it's been on countless albums. It's done a lot of Bob Seger. It's credited with the discovery of Billy Powell of Lynrd Skynrd. They came back from lunch one day, and here he is belting out the intro to Freebird, and so they put that on the album, which Skynrd did their very first album here in 1971. Jimmy Johnson refers to this piano as the Kodachrome piano.
Okay.
Paul Simon's Kodachrome was cut and recorded on that. So,
wow.
very cool. A lot of history. A lot of famous fingers been
That is awesome.
jazzing that thing
Yeah,
out.
this whole place just kind of has this like on top of the the atmosphere outside. It's kind of got this like thickness of history.
It's a certain vibe, and we get that a lot. We get that expression a lot. Devin Allman came through.
Yeah.
He performed a show over at Warehouse 414, which is a little venue down the road.
Yeah.
And I got him to come into the studio. He loved it. I mean, he walks in and he's like, "Oh shit, motherfucking shit, right? Yeah, this is fucking awesome." Verbatim, that's what he said.
Yeah.
And so he picked up on it immediately. I mean, you can actually hear the floor becomes its own musical instrument because you're sitting on top of a basement with pine wood that goes all the way across here, and so the resonation starts
speakeasy
to
that you were filming. That's awesome.
It's got a little hidden lounge downstairs.
That was awesome. So along the process, so you guys opened just this year, so about in January of 2017, right?
Yeah.
And so how long was it from the first time that the grant was written and the nonprofit decided to do this to the moment that it opened?
Well, everything started right after the documentary came out, so around 2013,
Okay.
and then like I said, we were open for tours in here, but we weren't doing extensive tours. We didn't have the basement available.
Yeah.
And actually, it was probably a hazard,
Yeah.
so before we got the grant money. So we didn't know how we were going to be able to bring this back up. And then we were approached by Beats, so we didn't even find them. They found us.
That's awesome.
And so with that money, we were able to start restorations, which lasted a couple of years. We actually sold merchandise out of a trailer that sits out in the front yard there. It's an old Airstream. And so we sold merch while the gift shop was being redone. It was about a 2.5 year restoration project in itself.
Man.
So because you had everything from the ground up, the entire basement was redone.
Yeah.
Even the roof was redone and soundproofed and all that. So back in the day when it was a recording studio originally, this had a flat metal roof, and so you actually had to stop recording when it would rain.
Wow.
Because they could hear it on the playback.
Yeah.
So we fixed that problem.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me, there must have been times when there were setbacks, right? So during the reconstruction of this, any time you were, first of all, working with grant money, and second of all, working with people that have different interests about what this should or shouldn't represent, and you also have physical construction challenges. When was there a time during those 4 years where things really went sideways and there was doubt that this was going to happen, and how did that get solved?
I think that one of the biggest things was actually acquiring the building itself. Like I said, the person who owned it before wasn't exactly as minded as we are and what we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But after all that was settled, it was kind of smooth sailing. We really didn't have a lot of issues from the reconstruction, and the Beats money. Obviously, you've just got to document everything. You've got to send it off. You've got to show them. So, and the foundation, the board, they're all very like-minded with what they wanted it to represent, because they wanted it to be what it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And they really achieved that. Now, we've had some issues since then.
Okay, what's happened?
When Dan Auerbach came through, we had a plumbing issue. We found out that, we instead of doing the ground up, we should have gone even further and done the below ground up, because we had a plumbing issue. And so they actually had to dig down 6 to 8 feet in a spot from the out in the parking lot. And as you probably saw when you came in, there's this crater that's out there now, and that's because they packed all the dirt down. Well, it rained the very next day, and so it washed a lot of that stuff out of there. And so we should have looked underground, but this is not something you think about. So the pipes were rusted out and just
did
terrible.
Did anything burst or what?
No, we couldn't flush. So I mean, Dan they had to use porta potties after during that recording session. So a minor inconvenience, but I mean,
small
it is
price
what it
to
is.
pay to get the feel.
And it was a little bit bigger than a small price. Now the Beats money is definitely all gone. So that's because
let's
of the plumbing.
Let's talk about that. So is this place financially self-sustaining? How are you guys doing that?
We are a nonprofit organization. So when you come in and you pay for a tour,
Yeah.
$12, and then 10 if you got a group of 20
Yeah.
or more. So that goes directly back into the foundation.
Okay.
That along with the merchandise sales.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, hell, you can pay $6.50 for a T-shirt, and then we turn around and we sell it for 25 or 30 because
Yeah.
it goes back into the
I
foundation.
bought an awesome $30 baseball jersey.
Yeah, and everything's available on our website too. So anything
Okay.
that you spend, like I said, goes directly back into the foundation and helps us
Yeah.
do this kind of stuff.
It's called the MSMF, right?
Yeah,
Muscle Shoals Music Foundation.
Yes.
Okay.
.org.
.org.
And so, yeah, being a nonprofit, we are self-sustaining.
That's awesome.
And it's great. You know, I mean, we're seeing a lot of tours and getting a lot of tourists from all over the world. I mean, just earlier today,
Yeah.
in the same group, I had Canadians, I had people from London,
Yeah.
and I had somebody from Australia.
Yeah.
And then somebody from Birmingham, Alabama. So
Let me ask you: is Muddy Waggers the first dog to ever do the tour?
yeah, I believe Muddy is definitely, and let me tell you, he's been a great first candidate to come through. He's a sweetheart. So
Yeah.
and he's just sitting over here laying down right now, actually just chilling out. So
That's awesome.
I love the name too. Got to say.
Muddy Waggers is the man. Very cool, very cool. What would you say is the number one lesson? So a lot of people who listen to our show are small business people that are either currently in the trenches or interested in getting small business, and this essentially is I mean, it's a nonprofit, but it's a small business, and it's a small business that has a very specific history and purpose. What would you say is the number one lesson that you've learned along the way?
I really think that, and I think this applies to my life in general, but you've really got to be versatile. You got to be able to do a little bit of everything, and you can't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You can't be afraid to jump in head first. You have to adapt. You know, I mean, there's so many things you do on a daily basis that you don't even realize that you're doing that improves everything that you're about. So even just waking up and brushing your teeth in the morning so your breath ain't stanky when you go and talk to the public. You know, I mean, it's just be versatile and adapt because you just have to be able to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you see this going? So it just opened. I'm really excited to be here. It's like I said, I go to Clarksdale, Mississippi to play and do a workshop every year, and I've been kind of keep my eye on like, can we go to Muscle Shoals before, and it wasn't open yet. Where do you want it to go in the next 10 years? What's the vision?
Well, the vision, we've got some plans drawn up. We really want the entire landscape here to be updated. We're building a parking lot pretty soon. We want to make sure that we keep this part open for tours, and then maybe even eventually get the gift shop out of here in its own separate building.
Okay.
We'd like to have an artist grotto, so that way they could actually come in and sit out in the next to the studio, write music.
Man, I want to come to the artist grotto.
Yeah. So we've got a big thing planned, fenced in. The trailer outside that we used for merchandise, we'd love to see that turned into a food truck.
Yeah.
And really just make this a destination.
So is that if there's anybody listening that wants to open a food truck, are you accepting applications?
We'll come on in. We'll talk about a contract.
That
for
is
sure.
awesome.
We've got an old Airstream that you can use and convert it if you want to. So.
I love that. That's awesome. So what's it like to do business here in the kind of Florence, Muscle Shoals area? What's your relationship with other small businesses around here as well as with the government?
Well, we work a lot with, like I said, the foundation itself has members on the board that work over at Fame. So we promote music, and we promote the Music Triangle, which of course consists of Memphis, Nashville, and then down to New Orleans, and then it creates this triangle of everywhere in between here in the Southeast. And so, and it's saturated, man. It's a lot of information, a lot of music. You've been to several studios.
Yeah, I'm going to Oxford today, and then I'm going to Clarksdale tomorrow, and then I'm going to down New Orleans.
Yeah, and so you just came from Sun Studios, which, like I said, Sam.
I came from Nashville. I've been to Sun before.
Okay. Yeah. Well, but Sam, Phillips was that's associated. So, there's an intricate web of information that is just tied into this. Now, as far as we do a lot of promotion. We get a lot of people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I run a little brewery brewery
cool.
down the road, Blue Water Brewery.
Okay.
So those people that come here, I always send them that way.
Yeah.
So we're very small business minded, and it works easily here. Like I said, the mayor of Sheffield is on our board, so we can get stuff done.
Yeah.
Now, in keeping that in mind, we, how they say, if you love what you do, you don't feel like you go to work.
Sir.
That's exactly how it feels.
Both
when
you
I
and I
here.
are technically working right now. And this is pretty awesome.
And I'm loving it. So
sounds good, man. That's cool. Where can people find you? So you've mentioned a few things along the way. You've mentioned the website msmf.org.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then there's other. Are you guys active on Instagram?
Yes, we are active on Instagram, and you can go through our website and click on the link. We're on Facebook as well, Shoals Sound Studios.
Yeah.
That's where we release a lot of stuff because it gets out there a little easier, and Instagram too.
Cool.
So check out the website, and then from there you'll click on anything, and then of course come visit us. I mean the where we are, 3614 Jackson Highway.
What's the closest airport to here?
We actually have a small airport here in Muscle Shoals.
Okay.
Now they fly from here to Nashville for like $40 or $39, I think.
Wow.
So if you flew into Nashville, you could fly from Nashville to Muscle Shoals for like $40.
And it's not a bad drive. I mean, I drove down from Nashville today. It's 2 and change hours.
Yeah, 2 and change. I like to take the Natchez Trace.
Okay.
It's a beautiful drive, and there's no semis or anything that come on that.
I did encounter more semis than I thought.
Yeah, it can be kind of rough. And then, of course, you hit those little towns with the fluctuating speed limits. Now, it's only about 50 or 55 going down the Natchez Trace, but you've got no semis, no red lights, no stop signs.
Love it.
And it's a beautiful drive. So
now I'm getting to know the secrets of the back roads and inner routes of the music triangle.
That's right, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and sharing your story with the listeners of Small Business War Stories, and best of luck with everything.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks
thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.